Welcome to Life, Lessons, and Laughter with your host, Glenn Ambrose.
Hello, people. What's happening? Welcome to the live. So here we are. It is March 11th, 2021, and we are ripping it up live. So today, since I release these as podcasts, I'm going to kind of jump right into the topic and let the live viewers kind of catch in. So the people listening to the recording don't have to listen to me babble and wait for everybody to log on. So go hopefully a little bit quicker and get right into it. So the topic tonight is, let me see what the topic is. I have to look. There's a saying, you can't get there from here. So in spirituality, you can't get there from here doesn't exist. So that's the topic today. That's the title. What I'm going to do is dive into it, of course, more deeply. And what I mean by, a lot of times in life, we get to a place and, we're overcome by the situations, feeling overwhelmed. We look at the external circumstances, and a lot of times they seem difficult to overcome. We've gone too far in the dark. We're too lost. We're too far from the life that we want to live, and it's discouraging. And, this is one of the many problems of looking at the external to determine where you are. The external is not good. Oh, and I do have to stop for a moment. I can see this, Ben, because we're making sure we fix the comments that were coming in on my Facebook personal page as well as my business page. So I wasn't able to see the comments. So I think I can see the comments. So hi, Sarah. Hi, Johnny. Cool. So it looks like the comment thing is fixed. Of course, thanks to Ben for helping out. Ben's always in the back. Hey, Sue. How are you? Hope Rhode Island's treating you guys good. I miss all the days with the soccer with you guys. We had so much fun out there. So yeah, it looks like we're doing good, and I'm just going to put this little ticker up. So like I was saying, now that we're through the comment, I mean, as far as finding out that the comments are working, and Buddy is joining us, Christiane is joining us. Wow, I've got people from all over, man. Sarah, where are you now? I have to ask. And Johnny, where are you? I know Ben's in Rhode Island. I think Buddy's in Massachusetts. Christiane's here in the DR with me. I'm not sure where Sarah is at the moment. She's our traveler. And I think Johnny moved out of Massachusetts, if I remember right. So yes, thank you, Sue. Yeah, it was lots of fun with the kids. So yeah, back onto topic. So the topic is that saying you can't get there from here, and the fact that doesn't exist. It doesn't matter where we are, what our external circumstances look like. We have to start learning to live from the inside out, not the outside in. Everybody, as a general rule, if you look at society and you go, okay, well, 75% of them claim to be unhappy. that tells me that what is generally accepted as the way to live is dysfunctional. So I can, if I want to find out things that I need to change, all I have to do is look at what's generally acceptable, the way most people live. If I look at the way most people live, and myself included, either when I'm living unconsciously, when I slip into those times of unconsciousness, or if I look into my past, I don't carry the baggage from my past because I release the emotional trauma and the emotional energy that was attached to it. But I still remember it. I still remember how I used to think and things like that. So I used to believe that, once everything got fixed in my life, then I'd be happy. And that was actually the beginning of my real end, because, I was very dysfunctional alcoholic for 20 years. So it was easy. When you're an alcoholic and you're unhappy, like, you have 6 billion reasons why you're unhappy. There's no surprise to you or anybody else that you're unhappy. You're an alcoholic, your life's a mess. There's plenty of reasons. So I wasn't shocked when I was unhappy when I was drinking and my life was falling apart in so many ways. I got really freaked out when I pulled myself together and I started a business. I got married. I had my son. I bought a house. I had a new car and a driveway. I did everything that society told me to do. And I was more unhappy than when I was drinking. That was the beginning of my end, because I was like, oh my God, I understand why I'm unhappy when I'm living an alcoholic, dysfunctional, screw society way of living. But if I do everything that I'm told to do and I'm still unhappy, now I'm screwed, because I'm unhappy if, I'm damned if I do, I'm damned if I don't. So that was really the beginning of my major unraveling, which led eventually to my awakening, about 2 years later. So this is, of course, in an extreme example, like I was, that's what can happen to your life if you're focused on the external. But everybody has experienced an aspect of this. Everybody has experienced an aspect of going, if this was, living externally, if I get this straightened out, then I'll be happy. And then straightening that out and finding out you're still not happy. Happiness comes from within. And people say that. If you ask, 100 people, 90 are going to be like, yeah, happiness comes from within. But most people don't live that way. Of course, happiness comes from within, but my boss is a jerk, so that's out of my control. No, it's not the rule. That's spiritual law. That's universal, eternal law. Happiness comes from within, period. It does, always, every time, in every way. So the law doesn't say happiness comes from within unless your boss is a jerk. They don't have caveats in spiritual law. So it's across the board, and we need to start living like that. So understanding that, we all fall on the pity pot sometimes. I still do every once in a while. I don't stay there long, thank God. But, we feel bad about our situations. It's too much to change, all this stuff. And, what I want to explain is the way the universe works, or God works, or whatever you believe in, is that it's constantly changing. It's organic. It flows off of what's happening all the time. So it doesn't matter where you are. If I'm here and I've got, I have 20 choices of what I can do from the position that I'm in and the circumstances that I'm in. And then I choose to take a step this way. So now I'm here. Now, instantly, as soon as I make that choice, as soon as I take that action, instantly there's 20 new options, and I'm probably minimizing by saying 20, but there's 20 new options based on the decision that you just made. And they can go in any direction at any time. Like the possibilities are, the possibilities of what can happen are endless from exactly where you are right now. And they're just as endless as they were 10 years ago, and they're just as endless as they're going to be 10 years from now. So it's about understanding that, like I'm using my story as an example with this. I was homeless, alcoholic for 20 years. I don't think I drew a sober breath literally for at least 2 years. I mean, not even one. I don't think that there was any sober. I don't think that there was one day where I actually didn't drink in at least the last 2 years, probably 3 or 4. But, so my body was like shutting down. I was physically dying. I mean, I'm not going to get into the disgusting details, but things were not working on my body anymore. So organs were starting to shut down. It wasn't pretty. And so I'm physically dying. I'm completely addicted to alcohol. There is no freedom of choice. There is no choice whether I drink or not. I had to drink. Otherwise, my body would go into detox. And I mean, literally, like I knew I was screwed, like towards the end there, a couple of years before I stopped, when I could not drink 11 beers in a day without my body going into detox. Because what I would do is I drink 12 and then 10 and then 8 and then 6. And then as I got worse, I'd drink 12 and then 11, and then 10, and then 9. And now it would take me a couple weeks, but eventually I would wean my body off of it and I could, stay sober for a few days or something. But I got to the point where I could not have 11 beers. I couldn't make that jump from 12 down to 11 in a 24-hour period because my body would just go into detox. And I was like, oh, I'm in trouble at this point. So, I mean, I was bad in a lot of ways. I was 1,400 miles from my son, no hope. I mean, I had never really done anything in my life. I was 35 years old. There was no reason why I thought that I was going to be able to pull myself out. And I didn't think I was going to pull myself out. But then I went through the 12 steps, which spawned my spiritual awakenings and popped open very dramatically. And within 3 months, I spun around on a dime. In less than that, I was completely hopeful. I was completely reorganized and rearranged from the inside out. My body started recovering very quickly. My brain started recovering fairly quickly. That took a little bit longer. But so that was just, I mean, for all intents and purposes, the whole turnaround really happened in less than 3 months. But then you take that and go, okay, what does that mean in our everyday life? Well, in my everyday life, everything changed in less than a year. I was in Florida, 1,400 miles away from my son, like I said. I was up in Florida with a new career, with my own apartment, and starting to get by the end of the first year, I had actually gotten visitation rights where I was seeing my son 5 days a week. Now, and it was all given to me. Like that, you can't make this stuff up. When I moved up, my ex-wife would only let me visit my son in like her parents' cellar for a couple hours a week. But then she moved down with her boyfriend and needed a babysitter. And that's when I came in and rearranged my work schedule so I could get him every time she needed somebody to watch him, because she was going back to school too. So I got him 5 days a week and then locked that in for visitation right after we had set it. because I knew as soon as she was done school, that was going to be gone, and I didn't want it to be gone. So I locked it in. And then from that point on, it was another 10 years of family court on a regular basis, but to see my son more and more, go on vacation, stuff like that. But I was seeing him at least 4 or 5 days a week from that point on. So I had completely changed mentally. I looked at life completely differently. Emotionally, I had released tons of stuff from my past and was able to move forward. I was filled with hope, and all that was internal in the first few months, and it became external. Once the changes took place in me, my external reality reflected that back to me. You see, this is what I mean by living from the inside out. We have to go inside and do the work on us. And then our external life starts getting better. It starts being reflected back to us in that way. But if I would have moved, this is so absurd, I don't even really want to say it, but I'm going to. If I would have tried to just, I don't know. I don't even know what it would have looked like to do it any other way. But let's just say I could stop drinking. Let's just say that. Somehow Glenn went to a detox, took some Librium so his body didn't shut down and die. And then he got sober, and somehow magically I was able to not drink for a while. But I didn't do the inside work. None of that would have happened. There's no way. There's absolutely no way. I could not have fielded the onslaught that happened to me when I moved up to Rhode Island. But I couldn't have handled it. I tried that once even, and I couldn't handle it. So I never could have just picked up and started a new career. I didn't. So I needed to do the inside work, and we all do. And when we do the inside work, then we align. And that's what it's about. It's about aligning. It's not linear. The spiritual walk is not linear. Changing our lives is not linear. There's not a formula. We have to loosen our grip. And I say loosen our grip because we're not going to let it go. I mean, I still to this day see myself behaving in ways because of the way society has conditioned me. In dysfunctional ways, I mean. I still see myself doing that stuff. But when I see it, I go, oh, look at that, I'm doing it. It doesn't make sense, the fact that I'm doing this, but I was just so conditioned by society's ways of doing things that I just started doing it unconsciously. Oh, okay, I'm going to stop doing that now that I'm aware of it, and I'm going to do something different. So we have to loosen our grip on the thought that we have to change our external situations to make ourselves happy, or we have to go through this, and this, and then we'll get there. In the spiritual walk, there's this, we're so conditioned that we have to learn everything, and somebody's going to tell us when it's graduation day and when we're capable of doing something. We're so conditioned that way because in the physical realm, everything is kind of set up that way. Everything is linear. You learn this, and then you learn this, and then you learn this, and then you graduate, and then you get a job in that area because you learned all this stuff. And it's all linear, it goes in a row. Well, spirituality isn't like that. And now that we're in the middle of the spiritual shift, it's happening less and less like that. Because we're here now. I've been talking about this spiritual shift for 15 years. Well, welcome. You wonder what's going on in the world? It's a gigantic spiritual shift, and there's tons of energy. And if you go with it, it's going to be one of the best times of your life. And if you resist it, it's going to suck ass. Everybody's saying 2020 was such a horrible year, and it's, it was a wonderful year for me. It was a wonderful year for most of my clients because they embraced it and went with it. Nothing is good or bad. It just is. And we either use the energy of it as an opportunity or we use it as a problem. Using things as a problem doesn't benefit us. We look, oh, the economy crashed. Oh, this is horrible. Really? There's tons of people becoming millionaires when economies crash because it creates new opportunities. And the people who are looking for those opportunities become millionaires. And the people who are going, oh, well, you can't start a business now. Oh, this is horrible. Oh, look at this problem. Guess what? They're not the ones becoming millionaires. So there are opportunities in everything. And if we look for them, we'll find them. So it doesn't take linear time. It takes alignment. So when I woke up spiritually, I aligned to a different truth, and I understood things differently. And because internally I did that, I interacted with the world around me differently, the people around me differently, the energy in which I said things came out differently. I said things out of love instead of out of frustration, and things happen differently. So like a good example of that was, this happened in all three of my jobs, but I think the most obvious one was my first job. And they had a meeting at a time when I was supposed to be visiting my son. And he said, hey, it's a mandatory meeting. And I said, oh, really? On Friday? Yeah, I won't be there. And my boss was like, he was at my office that day, and he was like, oh, it's a mandatory meeting. And I said, well, yeah, I heard you say mandatory. I said, but it's not really a mandatory meeting. This is, from a company standard, I can understand that you're saying it's mandatory. I get that, and I get the meaning of it. And that's cool. I said, but like for me, it's not mandatory. I said, just because like in my life, what's mandatory is that I spend time with my son. That's mandatory. It's non-negotiable. So I'm going to do that because it's how I live my life. It's just mandatory. So I understand, like when you say it's mandatory, you mean it's mandatory like if I don't do it, there'll be repercussions. So it's not actually mandatory. It's just if I decide not to do it, then I will get repercussions. And I fully understand that. And I'm fully fine with accepting whatever repercussions come. And he's looking at me like I have three heads. And one of the reasons why was because I was completely non-defensive. I was talking about it. I was talking about the situation by very matter of fact. It was just self-love. I love myself. I love my son. And this is what's important to me. And that's how I'm going to live my life. It's not up for discussion. It's, I'm not debating it with my boss. I'm not waiting for his approval. I'm just sitting here going, like, you think it's a mandatory meeting, but what's mandatory in my life is me being a father. That's mandatory. That takes priority over everything. So I just won't be at the meeting. And he's like, well, you could be fired. And I said, well, yeah, I imagine that's, I kind of assumed that could be one of the possibilities. And it was a Friday afternoon. So it was retail. So I don't remember what day. But I said, am I definitely fired if I don't go? Because if I'm definitely fired, I was on my way out the door. I said, I'll take my stuff with me because I'm fired, because I'm telling you right now, I'm not going. But if you guys have to discuss it first to decide whether you fire me, then I'll just leave my stuff here because it's only a 15-minute drive and I might still be working here and I don't really feel like grabbing everything right now. So I'll just leave it. So do you guys have to discuss it or am I definitely fired? And my boss was just looking at me like, what? Well, no, I guess you're not definitely fired. I guess we would have to discuss it first. I said, oh, okay, then I'll just leave my stuff here. all right, take care. I'll see you next week, maybe, and I walked out. And I mean, his jaw was dropped. And what it is this is the energy in which I functioned from. It was complete self-love. There was no defensiveness. There was no argument. There was no me going, that's not fair. You should understand that I want to be with my son. And he even said, he goes, well, could your ex-wife watch him? And I thought for a minute, I said, I don't know. I says, maybe she could watch him. So I'm not going to ask her because it's my time with him. And I'm spending time with him because I want to spend time with him, not because it's my obligation. I said, so I don't know if she could watch him or not, but I won't be asking. It's my time with him. And again, I just said it this matter-of-factly, and it just blew his mind. Old Glenn would have been fired. Absolutely. I would have been fired in 30 seconds. They wouldn't have had to fire me. I would have quit. And there possibly would have been violence. The guy was a nice guy. I probably wouldn't have hit him, but I probably would have flipped over a desk or something. I probably would have gone in there, grabbed my stuff. The anger would have started bubbling up more and more that these people are jerks and they don't understand what being a father is. And I don't screw them and screw this company and screw everybody. And I would have built myself up into a frenzy and probably flipped a couple desks over, and the cops probably would have been called. And, I have done stuff like that in my previous life when I was psycho. So like that very well could have happened, but I didn't interact with life that way. And I didn't get fired. And this situation happened in all 3 of my jobs before I started my business. And I didn't get fired from any of them. And I did the same thing on every one. But I spoke from love, non-defensively, not out of frustration, very defensively, right? So this is what I mean, how we interact with life differently. Once we do the inside work, the inner adjustments, then we interact with life differently, and we get different results because of it. We have way more control over our life than we realize, than we think we do. But we need to do the inside work first. And when we do the inside work, alignment occurs. And when we are aligned with the universe, things can spin around on a dime. We can make a 180 in no time at all. I've seen it. Like I said, I just explained earlier how I've done it in my own life. And I've seen it with countless of my clients. I mean, I can't even count how many have, in the last 8 years have completely transformed their life. And in a very short period of time. Some people do it longer. Some people do it shorter. I'm an action taker, so I tend to do things quicker. Other people are processors, so they tend to do things slower. So there is a difference in processors, even though they take longer. See, the way it looks with a processor is it takes them a while to really buy into what they're going to do, and then they start to do it, and then maybe they have a little fear, and then they push through, and then blah blah blah, and eventually they do it. And this process could take, and I'm thinking in the past, because things are speeding up now. That process, depending on what we're talking about, could take 6 months, a year, working through something. An action taker tends to take the action very quickly. Once they have clarity, they take the action. And then sometimes there's adjustments that go on for 6 months to a year. Sometimes, so like you adjust to the energy after. But a lot of time, but both ways work is my point. And I have to say this, but I'm going to try to choose my words carefully because I am an action taker and processors are difficult for me because it feels like they take so long and I just want to kick them in the ass and go, let's go, but in working with different types of people, I've seen that I need to give space to certain people so they can process. That being said, like I keep mentioning in a lot of these, we are in the middle of a spiritual shift and we do not have time to process stuff so long. The people who are interested in this stuff need to do what they are capable of doing where they are now. They don't have to read 32 books on it. You don't need to listen to 52 podcasts. You don't have to take the right course. You don't have to you're never going to know what you're doing until you do it. And it's not just spiritual stuff. Spiritual stuff is more like that. But even in the regular world, I mean, when you graduate college, do you know how to do your first job? Of course not. You don't know what the heck you're doing. You have to get trained on the job after you graduate college, you know? So what it is like we never feel confident in what we're doing until we do it. And spirituality is even more like that. So we have to just lean in and do it. And then all of a sudden we start, learning, and we start getting comfortable and stuff like that. So this is what needs to happen in spirituality. We need to lean in more and disconnect from all this learning crap. Like, we don't have to learn as much as we think we do. We just have to align. And what controls that alignment? So if most people, when they're on the spiritual path, they've had a certain amount of suffering. That's what got you onto the spiritual path. So, if you really slow down and think about it, you either change or you suffer more. Those are your only two options. And really get clear on that right now, because we need to change quicker. We need to change quickly because the universe is supporting that, because there's a shift going on. So the more we lean in to change, the quicker we're going to change. And it's going to be freaking awesome. Like, my first year was the most amazing, wonderful year of my life. And when I see my clients going through this in their first year, it's amazing. And of course, it's like, oh my God, holy cow, I didn't know life could be this easy. I didn't know it could be this good. Oh my God. That type of stuff happens. It's a little bit disconcerting in certain ways, but in a good way. It's wonderful. How exciting is it to just start leaning in and finding out that you can create whatever life you want? It's very exciting. So what determines the speed in which you enter the alignment? Because the old way was to learn, take 4,000 courses, read 62,000 books, listen to podcasts for 5 years, and then cry into a pillow with a therapist for another 5, and then maybe you transcend something. Like, all that stuff, it's just overkill, man. We don't need to do all this stuff. If you really want to change your life, contemplate doing it quickly. Because why not, man? Haven't you suffered enough? God knows I did. And the stories I hear, I know there's tons of people suffering out there. So if you're on this path, think about doing it quicker. Even if you're a processor, it's okay. It's so to align quicker and really make a push. Just make a push and see what happens. I'm not saying that you have to give up everything or quit your job, nothing like that. I'm just saying lean in a spiritual way and just give it a shot for a few weeks or a few months or something. Just really lean in and see what happens. See what happens. And then, because what happens is pain pushes until the pleasure pulls. So the suffering is just trying to get you over the hump so you commit and go. That's what it's there for. It's just pushing you from behind. As soon as you lean in and start going, the pleasure of what you're doing is going to pull you forward. It's going to be an enjoyable experience. You're going to love it. So experiment. Your life is your laboratory. Experiment with this stuff. Lean into it. Lean into healthy change. And I mean, lean into it like you've never leaned into anything before. And if you've had spiritual awakenings, lean into it twice as much as your last spiritual awakening took. just for a brief period, just to see what happens. Because what you're going to find is the entire universe is behind you with a freaking tsunami wave of energy coming, and your life is going to take off a lot quicker than you realize. And it's going to be wonderful because you're going to align. As soon as you align, alignment takes commitment and surrender. And that is something we have control over. The more you committed, this is why I opened completely. Most of you know my story. It's because I wanted to die, and I thought I needed to make sure the 12 steps didn't work so I would have a clean conscience so I could kill myself. So I went and did the steps 110% because I heard half measures avail us nothing. And I figured if I went through the steps and I only gave them 80% and then they didn't work, I would know that I only gave it 80%. And then I would have to start over and give them 100%. And I honestly did not have enough energy in my body to do that. I just wanted to die. So I was like, I'll just do this 110%. If it works, cool. It probably won't. If it doesn't, I'll have a clean conscience and I can just leave this world. That was my intention. And as warped as it is, it gave me I gave it 110%. And this is my point. The commitment level I had was 110%. The surrender that I fell into was 110%. When I stood at the wall of fear, and anybody that's done some real spiritual work will know what I mean. When you're standing at that wall of fear and your whole, like you're going, like if I go any more forward, if I lean into this anymore, it's just going to be a gigantic pit of blackness. I'm going to lose myself. I don't know what I'm going to be. I might implode. I might die. I might end up curled up in a ball in the corner, just drooling on myself for the next 30 years. I don't know what's going to happen to me, but there is way too much pain in there for me to go into. And if I do it, I'm never coming out. It's just too much. And I stood at that and I went, I don't care. I'm not living like this anymore. And I dove in. And that's when you come out the other side. And that's when the happens, you know. So this is what you have control over, your commitment, your surrender. And the more you do that, the quicker your results are going to be. It's going to happen very quickly. So let's see. I'm going to check my notes and some of the comments now and see where we are. Yeah. So the only thing I wanted to touch on was that maybe I did do this, but so I'll just touch on it quickly. The universe sets new options from where you are. As soon as you make a choice, now all of a sudden there's new options. One of those doors opens to a whole new life. And if you open the wrong one, who cares? There's 20 more doors. Open another one. Like it's fine, man. Like don't worry about making the wrong decision. If you're following your heart and you're trying to better your life, if you're trying to do the inner work, that is success. The universe or God, whatever you believe in, will never punish you for trying to do the right thing, to follow your heart, to when you're trying to grow and do the inside work, you will never get punished. You may make a wrong choice because you don't know any better, but the universe will open up doors for you to get out of that situation immediately. If you look for them, what happens is a lot of times people they play the martyr, you know, they're like, I want to better my life. I'm going to take this job because I think it'll be joyful for me. And they don't really know it's joyful for them yet because they're kind of early on. So they make this choice and they take this job, and it's not about the money. They want to expand their soul, and it's a bad choice. It wasn't really what they thought it was, or maybe their joy wasn't what they thought it was. And it just isn't a good fit. And then they go, oh my God. Oh, I tried to grow and I still get the shit end of the stick. Oh, you know, don't feel sorry for yourself. If you make a wrong choice, if your heart is in the right place, if your intention is to grow and to do the inside work and to become a better version of yourself, if you stop whining and start opening other doors, there's going to be a door right out of that situation and into a better one, guaranteed. I know I've made plenty of wrong decisions in my journey. So don't get hung up on it. This is the, I may have done a podcast on this. It's the opportunity only knocks once, they say. Like, that is one of the biggest lines of crap I've ever heard. Opportunity only knocks once. That's all it does. It's literally all it does. Opportunity just knocks. And then it knocks somewhere else. And then it's its only job. If opportunity only knocked once, it'd be like, okay, all right, I'm retired. I'm in eternal energy, and I have nothing to do for eternity because I knocked once, and that's all I do. I just do it once. Nothing ever does anything once. Why would opportunity knock once? Life is filled with opportunity constantly. And as soon as where you are, there's tons of opportunity. And if you make a wrong choice, there's tons of opportunity there. And if you make a right choice, there's tons of opportunity there. It's always opportunity. So don't worry so much about your external, where you are. The possibilities and your future are endless. And don't worry about your age either. That's another load of crap I'm not going to go off on. But I mean, for humanity's perspectives, I'm kind of getting up there in life, So people are like, oh, I'm scared to make a change. I'm already 40 or 50 or 60. And then they look at me at 52 and they're like, oh my God, wow, look at the changes Glenn's making. It's like, it's not. Who said that there was an age where you can make changes and where you can't? I mean, this is what I mean about conditioned thought patterns that society believes in, that we don't even know determine our lives. We let things stop us that have literally no truth whatsoever. It's silly. So let's see. I'm just going to check on the comments real quick. Tina, hi from Rhode Island. And Sarah, I asked her earlier, she's in Colorado getting ready for snowpocalypse. I do not miss those. Michelle, hi, nice to see you. She's my friend originally from Massachusetts, although I didn't know her then. I met her in Rhode Island. Raina's back. Lisa, my friend from Massachusetts. And Claudia, hi, Claudia. That's my neighbor and landlord here in the DR. Lisa, I refer to it as my chi. My coworkers and others are always seeing how I am always happy and content, and I am. LOL. Just want to share that. Love seeing your pods. Thank you so much. You're very welcome, Lisa. When your energy is good, we don't realize we're doing it, but just walking around happy plants seeds for people, because they're used to what society does. Society meets at the water cooler and says, oh my God, let's bond over whatever sucks at the moment, because we can feel safe bonding with each other over what sucks, because then there is no fear of you thinking that I think I'm better than you. We think, like, if we talk about happy things, we're so scared that people are going to think that we think we're better than them, which is ridiculous. There's a gigantic difference between an egoic, oh yeah, I'm awesome, and no, I'm really doing awesome. One is based in self-love and one is egoic. There's no confusing the two. You don't have to worry about it. But usually people bond over negativity because there's no threat to that. So we have to break out of those patterns. And just by being positive, people, after a while, they go, oh, wow, I didn't even know you could act happy to other people. This is interesting. I see it all the time. Going to stores, people are like, how are you? I'm like, oh, phenomenal. And they stop and see if I'm kidding. And I just look at them like, no, really phenomenal. They're like, wow, that's so refreshing. They're just like, wow, I didn't even know it was socially acceptable to say things like that. So it's really a big deal. Kelsey, there's my niece, one of my nieces, and she's living her life. I'm so happy to see what you're doing in North Carolina, that she's out there just doing her thing. Nothing better than doing your thing, whatever that is, man. It's awesome. Janice, wow, I really needed to hear this. I've been stagnant in many ways. Sober 8 years. Congrats. Just did a 4th, but I sit on the fence too much. Fear controls me so much I get afraid to make changes, try new things. So this talk is an eye-opener. Absolutely. You know, like I said, so for all those in recovery or thinking about recovery or with loved ones in recovery, I know that there's more ways than one to get sober. But I'm telling you, man, I've been hopelessly addicted. I got out of it dramatically. I've had probably the largest turnaround that I'm not saying this to brag. I'm saying this is, I don't know. I'm sure they're out there, but I haven't met somebody that opened up quite as much as I did in such a short period of time. And I told you why earlier, is because I wanted to die. So I just did everything 110%. But the point that I want to make is the way I did it, I didn't just know how to awaken or how to surrender or anything. The 12 steps are there to induce a spiritual awakening. That's their job. That's exactly their purpose, to induce spiritual awakenings. So, hey, even if you're not into addiction, if you want to dive in and try to use those 12 steps as a way to induce spiritual awakenings, by all means, try it. But, what I did in those 3 months, I did 12 steps in 3 months, 12. I didn't do 2, 3, 4, 8. And I think that is part of the reason that it was such a opening. People take years and years to do the steps. I was involved in AA for 7 or 8 years, very in-depthly. And when I look at, they have I believe it was anywhere from a 7 to 12% sobriety rate for people that come into the program, which is horrible. But if you look at, of course, there's lots of external factors like court sending people there when they don't actually want to get sober and blah, blah, blah. But a lot of it is because they don't work the program the way it's laid out in the big book. When they wrote the big book, they based long-term sobriety on 1 year. That means everybody that they did the 12 steps in less than a year. And they had their awakenings, and an awakening is just a change of perception. So it's not this lightning bolt up the ass. It's much more accessible than what it sounds like, a spiritual awakening. It just changes of perceptions. You see things differently. You understand things differently. But we have to do all 12 steps. In a fairly short period, there's an energy wave to that work. And if we rip through it, and I'm not talking doing it half-ass, I busted my ass with that. I did it really to the best of my ability with everything out there. And I think that is a big difference because people, it's hard. I'm telling you guys all what to do. I don't mean to imply that it's easy. I get that it's not. You need to dig deep and push for that level of commitment, for that level of surrender that you need. It's not, you really have to do some soul searching. This is serious stuff. This is not for the lighthearted. This is not I don't know. I'm not sure if I should go bowling or do some spiritual work. That's not it, man. You need to dive in deep with everything you've got. And if you do, more than you can possibly imagine is going to come out of it. And in addiction, I believe it looks like the 12 steps most times. Of course, there's other ways. But they're there, man. Do them all. If you've done, and I've been through the steps like, I don't know, maybe like 4 or 5 times. I took people through the steps, groups, for years. So I've kind of walked through them, and I would do a self-check each time I walked people through. And most of the time I didn't have to do them anymore. Or maybe I'd find one thing that I needed to do a little 4th step on, and then follow it up with a 5th and a 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, kind of do that on a specific topic. I've done that a couple times on one specific topic that came up after I got sober, years after sometimes. So you can do stuff like that. But if you haven't done all the steps all the way when I took people through, my sponsor did in like 3 months. I took about 6 months because there's so much spiritual food in the big book. I couldn't help myself teaching it. So I took longer. But yeah, I guess maybe a year maximum, but you got to go through all of them, and Janice, you very well may have gotten through all of them. I'm talking about the topic and the information that came through me. So I don't mean to imply that I know what you've done. I have no idea. You very well could have done all 12 of these. So it was jumping out at me like something to talk about. That's all. Nothing personal. So, and I think I'm probably going to wrap up. Sarah, following my heart against common sense was the best thing I've ever done. Yes, because a lot of our common sense was taught, and it's conditioned sense. I'm going to coin a new term. It's conditioned sense that we use. It's not common sense. Common sense implies logic, and most things we do lack logic. And Janice, yeah. She said she has done all 12, which is great. So yeah, most things we do lack common sense. I say this often. It's one of my favorite things about spirituality. When I found out that the way society lives doesn't make any sense, and the spiritual way actually does make common sense, logical sense. Once you look into it, I was like, oh my God, this is this is amazing. So that is going to do it for tonight. No matter where you are means that there are options available for you to blossom into and design and live whatever life you want. And it can happen way faster than you think. And I'm going to kind of go off on Michael Bernard Beckwith and his movie Spiritual Liberation. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. I love this guy. And he talks about it, and he says, oh, people think that they've walked in the dark too long. Oh, I've walked in the dark too long. I've made too many mistakes. I've made too many mistakes. It's too late for me now. I'll never get it right. I'll never get it right. And he's like, no, that's not how it works. It's just one time. If you flip the switch and those circuits are aligned, the light's going to go on for you, man. It doesn't matter how long you've been walking in the dark. You just got to get it right one time. Align one time. Commit to that alignment one time. Surrender completely one time. That's it. And it's off to the races, man. You are going to live a life beyond your wildest dreams. So, and right now, there is no better time to do this because we have so much energy behind us. I can feel it. When I made changes, other than that first 3 months, when I made changes before, it was a lot more drawn out and painful sometimes. Now it's like as soon as I lean towards where I'm supposed to be leaning in, it's like I can feel being supported by the universe. I can feel a loving force just right there, and things play out way better. Before they used to play out better, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing!" Now they play out 10 times better. So that's it. I'm going to wrap it up, and I have to say hello to Sue. Hi, Sue. one of my hardcores from Rhode Island when I first started. And I got to give, this dude is the shit. Thank you, Sarah. So are you. All right. Thanks, guys. I hit almost an hour. I'm going to try to keep these 45 and maybe even 30. But thank you for listening. Work towards your alignment. Lean into it. Just experiment with it. Just do it for a while with a bunch of commitment and see what happens. And email me. And if you need any help, let me know. I'm here. All right. Thank you all.
Looking for more? Check out over 200 episodes of Life Lessons and Laughter, or click the link in the description of this episode to connect with Glenn directly.